Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Friday afternoon seminar, where we're privileged to have Dr. Kumar, extraordinary professor, senior economic advisor from the UN Environment Program, UNEP. Dr. Pushpam has a PhD in ecological economics, and he's been with the University of Liverpool in the UK as a professor in environmental economics. He holds a position of honorary research scientist at the Earth Institute in Colombia. He's an extraordinary professor at the University of Pretoria. But his main job, I think his day job, is a senior economic advisor since 2017, early this year, with the UNEP, where he's worked as chief in the Economic Sciences Services Economics Unit for the last 6 or 7 years. And today's seminar is around the UNEP agenda, natural capital, land degradation, and the Agenda 2030. So we've had a great day today with Dr. Pushpam discussing the type of work that ICRISAT has been undertaking in India and Africa, particularly around land degradation and restoration and our systems analysis. He's talked to many of the groups here in India. And I think going forward, we're hoping that there'll be a closer collaboration. And I think Dr. Pushpam sees some opportunities for us to collaborate in future. So I welcome you and invite you to give us a seminar.
Thank you, Anthony. This topic, first of all, I'm very pleased and very happy to be here for the first time. I have been hearing about ICRISAT from different sources and all good words. And then I have been thinking, oh, maybe one day I will go and see the kind of work they have been doing. And so then finally I'm here. So very happy to be here. And of course, we have to, it's a seminar, but it's more in terms of having and sharing the work which we do, and also keep a kind of eye what could be the areas where we can collaborate and work together. And I chose this topic, but this is very broad topic. So nonetheless, I would try to, when I speak, make it more focused, concrete, and identify the areas where we can work together. So natural capital and land degradation, Agenda 2030. When we talk about environmental management, one of the terms which all of us keep hearing is mainstreaming. Mainstreaming environment into development. When you go to the conservation lobby or the constituency, they talk about integrating the development into the environmental conservations. Depends what is the lens. If you talk about a Ministry of Finance or development or planning, rural development, they think, okay, air, water, land, soil, water, biodiversity should be integrated in the development, design, implementation, and evaluation. Similarly, when we talk to environmental ministries anywhere in the world, not only in India or South Asia, they talk about integrating growth and development into the conservation agenda. So mainstreaming, nonetheless, this lens or that lens, mainstreaming is here and people are talking about it. When we talk about mainstreaming, basically we talk about integrating nature into decisions of institutions that drive development policy, rules, plans, and investable funds. When we talk about, we also mean by mainstreaming to a kind of demonstration that what nature means to the economy. And we also talk about evaluating the practices and identify potential improvements over ongoing policies. And the examples could be investment in ensuring that growth is durable, promoting sustainable consumption and productions, aligning benefits and costs with beneficiaries and affected, and of course, pursuing inclusive outcomes in terms of fiscal policy, monetary policy, exchange rate, trade, investment, measurement, and of course, compass of change. Compass of change is the way we measure the metrics. Uh, so all this 1 to 3, they are part of the mainstreaming discussion. But when we do that, we also recognize that prosperity of planet and people, that is what SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and the entire world. When 25th of September 2015, all the governments came under that UN building in New York, they signed, they ratified that these are the 17 goals, 169 targets, and ongoing 240 plus indicators. Indicators might change in future, it might go up. Still, some of the goals and their corresponding indicators are not in final stage. But nonetheless, you have 17 goals. And that 17 goals, unlike earlier version or earlier avatar of SDG, MDG, it is not only meant for South, only, it is meant for everyone. Even in developed world, besides being high income, the woman empowerment is not in the best form. The social sector is not that great, so even they need it. So when we talk about mainstreaming, we have to recognize that SDG somewhere is existing where we have to move. Second, poverty and nature, the environment and poverty, they are related. But gone are the days when the lofty and very uh, romantic ideas that poor want to live in the nature or in the forest is wrong. Poor want big TV, big shopping malls, and big roads. And some of the tribal chiefs, if you go, they also want helicopter for themselves. So those notions are not correct. That poor in that dhoti, kurta, and they live in the forest. That is not the wrong notion. Identify the nature and dependence of poverty, incidence of poverty, and the elements of the nature. We have to recognize that a social system has to be cohesive, inclusive. So equity, basically. What is the goal number 6, I think? We also have to recognize that ecological systems play a very big role in providing infrastructure functions. The economy against linear is circular. So extract, produce, distribute, consume is no more the option now. You have to recycle, reuse, and basically restore. And we have also to recognize the planetary boundaries, the 9, 10 pillars, which is the broad defining boundary of the systems. So when we talk about mainstreaming, we talk about those 3 things, but we have to take note of these 6 things. And when we do that, then it brings us to a need for a paradigm shift. What are there can be a long list of the paradigm shift, but I have identified 4. Internalized cost, malign and benign impact of food production, for example, malign and benign impact of the production, which is emitting pollution not only in production, but also in distribution and consumption. So internalize cost, making damage unbearable. And again, this is from economics lens. Demonstrate and capture contribution of nature to economy. So what we know, moving beyond GDP, that was in Rio Plus 20. European Union is very, very strong, and their big effort is going into this direction. We'll talk in a minute what this means in details. Like, we did some study for Indonesia, Brazil, and India, right? And there are contribution of nature. So 7%, 12%, 7% for Indonesia, 12% for India, and 13% for Brazil. Contribution of nature is missing. But that 7% or 12% or 13% is 80% of the poor's economy. So any macroeconomic planning has to fail if we don't recognize the contribution of nature, don't demonstrate them, don't capture them into the conventional metrics, what is known as GDP. So that we have to understand. Paradigm shift also requires that natural capital, I'm coming in a minute, with a structure of macroeconomy, the capital market, the goods market, the money market, the labor market, all these markets have to recognize that natural capital also exists, like produced capital, like human capital. And we need to encourage green innovation, diffusion of know-how. Now, this is a kind of more generic statement. When we talk about what it means in terms of uh, main objective in simple terms, any country must have a growth which is smart, innovation driven. So that is talk about so a smart growth is innovation, sustainable growth, green, inclusive growth, equity is social. So growth, if we derive, has to be innovation oriented. It should be green. It should be full of equity. Now, natural capital. I mean, to our utter surprise and to your surprise probably here also, until I mentioned with one of you in the morning, natural capital is not the term accepted by international community. In fact, when these guys were doing meeting in Nairobi last year in May, that is the General Assembly, you can see somewhere Indian ministers too there. This is all the ministers. So natural capital, they didn't agree on the term, which is very accepted for you and me. They said, show me a single document of the UN. Basically, they mean negotiated text. Natural capital was not the term. But finally, this was the first time they accepted that yes, natural capital. So they talk about sustainable management of natural capital for sustainable development and poverty eradication. That is the name of the resolution. So it is accepted term. What it means? It is a kind of metaphor conveying the importance of ecosystems, their services for the people. It also helps this concept in resolving the trade-off. It facilitates mainstreaming of nature into planning and resource allocation. But please remember that measuring changes in natural capital value and hence wealth is not sufficient for assessing sustainability, but it is necessary. Just measuring will not take you where you want to go, but certainly it is a must condition. Because natural capital is a very, very basic diagram sometimes for communication. It helps. You have natural capital. See the red lining here. There are many studies showing these linkages. So natural capital, if it declines, natural capital is what? The forest, topsoil, groundwater, surface water, coastal and marine biodiversity, quality of air. You can add. Reduced stock of natural capital will lead to higher cost of infrastructure goods, will lead to reduced provision of ecosystem services and hence reduced real wage, worsening human health, increased vulnerability, causing basic infrastructure worsening, and finally creating extreme destitute and poor people, even if we go by $1.9 criteria. So natural capital decline will ultimately lead to that. But however, if it is managed, if you measure it and manage better, it goes up, providing enhanced provision of ecosystem services. A lot of work, including done by ICRISAT here, watershed management, shows it very clearly in terms of soil moisture and crop productivity, how better managed ecosystem services it leads to reduced cost of basic goods and hence improved livelihood and human health, leading to improved productivity, including causing enhanced minimum wage, and finally pulled up people from the poverty level. So it's very notional, intuitive diagram. But what I have seen from Anthony's team's presentation and others, that clearly fills in many of the linkages, and they provide concrete examples. Of course, natural capital is a term which comes from, which needs the input from various discipline, data, statistics, accounts, management and planning, policy, in ecological economics, and of course, ecological and environmental sciences. All these terms will. So, in terms of priority setting, GDP is not enough. And this came in the discussion with few of you in the morning. We need to, GDP is income. Income is flow, which comes from the stock of capital, that is wealth. So wealth is not income, and income is not wealth. If we mix the two, that is a very bad economics to do. So we have to sustain and keep or maintain the stock of wealth, including natural capital, so that flow of income is mentioned. So science and at least the economists, they have agreed long back, and few of them are Nobel laureates, that income is a wrong indicator. Income, you pollute, do spending on pollution abatement, it is part of income. How it can say anything meaningful about the human welfare? No. There are many other limitations. That's why wealth is a better wealth per capita over a period of time, how it is changing. That gives you the real indicators. It is a reliable dashboard. Income is not. When we talk about valuation, conventional accountants go for the transaction value, and that is a bad way because it does not capture externalities. We have also to prioritize, and that is where ICRISAT and your work comes in a big way. Restoration pays, come out with good evidence. You have Urmaya Lake in Iran, you have RLC cases, and everywhere it has been shown that restoration is the only way if you really want to achieve green economy, inclusive green economy. Comprehensive valuations. I will come and I will take why comprehensive valuation and where it is more helpful with the example of food sectors. GDP, one more thing. There was a time when in early 70s and 80s, if you talk about GDP is not enough, people will say, oh, this guy is somebody from NGO type or, green guys. But now conventional economy, this guy was not only a professor, he was chief economist of the bank, and he, of course, Nobel laureate. Louis Stiglitz says, you see what he said this year in Davos, GDP is not enough. So anyway, people who have interest, natural capital, although UN approved last year, but the concept has been coming up since Great Depression, early 1929. And you have even the UN DESA, UN or Department of Economic and Social Affairs in New York, they are the kind of custodian of the accounting system, chaired by a professional from outside UN, like last chair was Peter Harper from ABS Australia. And they lead that how to have a credible accounting system in place so that 195 countries can compare and say, you are better than me, or I am better than you, or many other comparison can be in place. Every country follows the same taxonomy, same typology, and same methodological approach. So that is where this concept has developed. And now we have come to the wealth status. Now, in natural capital, I would like to, good friend, and but he also, Dieter Helm, there's something called Natural Capital Committee in UK, constituted by DEFRA, and he is heading that. This is a nice quote, I find. The people have started working on natural capital. There is a right way to do this, and there are wrong ways of doing it. What worries me, that's what he is saying, is the speed with which everyone is coming up with their own way of doing it. Plenty of studies, even when I come to South Asia or India institutions, everybody has some number and the values. And that is misuse or abuse of economic science or using the concept of natural capital. And that's why we included Partha. Partha is a professor, but he has been instrumental behind this idea of wealth estimates. He says, we all acknowledge that nature is vital not only to our survival as a species, but is overwhelmingly a source of our well-being. Ongoing work on the inclusive wealth of nation is of vital importance because the measure includes nature as a capital asset. That is Partha, but also Eric takes it a very serious way and says that this is what Eric with even environment should be the right way. So there's a proper focus on wealth estimates, and that's why after doing this, this is the report we are coming by the end of this year. So you have I wanted to give you one. This is the Inclusive Wealth Last Report, which was launched in India, by the way, by RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan was here and Indian Minister. Uh, in 17 report for 180 countries, let me give you this picture. You have the blue one is the natural capital. You have red is the per capita capital share, produced capital, and you have natural capital per capita human capital. So you have human, you have natural, and see the natural capital, the middle one, is continuously on decline for the entire world. It's aggregate, of course, from 1990 to 2015. Except if you take the country, Japan is an exception. Again, it is based on the data which we have got from FAO. So we have not conducted our own ground data. So whatever is existing, we are showing again, and data is also not for all types of natural assets. There's selected one for which data is available for all countries. So those are the caveats. So this is on decline. If you see the 1992 to 2010, starting from 92 to 2010, you see this black is inclusive wealth index. It is increasing because produced capital is increasing, human capital is increasing, but natural capital is on continuous decline. So basically, if you see the GDP, they are up 50% in 2 decades, but IW inclusive wealth is only 6% increase. So basically, the message is loud and clear. Somewhere we are eating the wealth and treating them as income, and that is very bad for sustainability goal. If you have interest, what is the analytics behind it for this inclusive wealth index? You can see this. Basically, take physical stock of all types of natural capital and multiply the price, which is not the market price, but the shadow price. Now, land is so. One of the report which was partly for Africa, for 42 countries, West Africa, Central Africa, North Africa, South Africa, and West Africa. So you have benefits of action and you have cost of action. So if we don't do anything, we are losing the soil. And so if you avoid that, that is the benefit. So avoided cost is benefit. And if you invest money in intervention, whatever biological or mechanical measures, that will cost you in the initial cost and then the maintenance cost. And for all entire 42 countries, we left 14 countries because we didn't have data out of 56 countries in Africa. The benefit cost ratio was ranging from 3.16 to 26.35. Obviously, North Africa, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, they have a huge problem of rarine lands and land degradation. Huge. So obviously, since the problem is the cost is high, so if you do intervention, that has a very good return because you are able to maximize the beneficial impact of your intervention on the ground. So that's why it is very high. But even for entire continent benefit. But the question is, if benefit is so high, why investors are not coming up? That we'll talk in a minute. Now, early next week, we are doing it for 42 countries of Asia. You have Central Asia, you have Southeast Asia, you have East Asia, and this is also now 46 countries. That what is the cost of meeting the target of land degradation neutrality, LDN 15.3 of SDG. So land degradation neutrality objective has three indicators. One is that productivity of land should not decline in 2030 with respect to 2015. Land cover should not decline in 2030 with respect to 2015. And carbon content of the soil should also not decline. This was the last indicator because Monique Barabot and Executive Secretary of UNCCD was very keen to liaise with the UNFCCC, the carbon, and they said, okay, carbon content should also not be lower what we have in 2015. Now, in order to achieve, and they say, if you fail on one criteria, you fail on all criteria. So it's very stringent in terms of expectations. So if we want to achieve these three indicators by 2030, how much investment it will require and how much benefit it will yield in terms of crop productivity. Because there were many people were talking ecosystem services. Where is the data? Data is a big problem. So there are people like our friend Bob Costanja in ANU and others, they are doing it. But for 46 countries, having data is a nightmare. But nonetheless, we are moving in that direction. And uh, the report is giving a very good direction in the sense that benefit of action is far more than the cost of action. So that is for now. We talked about valuation. The other thing which is happening is the TEEV, the economics of ecosystems and biodiversity for food and agriculture. Now, when what is the challenge? The evaluation of food system right now is predominantly using the limited lens of per hectare productivity. The dominant metric is yield in tons per hectare. Huge externalities all along food value chains, be they positive or negative, are ignored. We need to replace this thinking with system thinking and a comprehensive evaluation framework. And that's why, for example, you have system of national accounts. They give you the metrics where you have profits, wage, taxes, subsidies for the food sector. And you have the production, which is natural landscape, manufacturing, farm level. This narrow field of view of per hectare productivity is not a comprehensive valuation framework. That's why we need this. We need this where you have, okay, you have the SNA, but you should have provisioning service. You have regulating, cultural, health, pollution, emission, social values, risk and uncertainties also evaluated at production level, process and distribution level, whether it's a wholesale or retail, and consumption level, industry, household, hospitality, and waste management. And only then you can get a clear picture of malign and benign impact of food production on environment and the human health and build those plus or minus in the cost structure and the pricing strategy of the government and the business firms. Otherwise, big investors ever filter their data and equity purchase through sustainability lens? No, they never do that. Global SRI and ESG rated assets went up 61% in just 2 years from USD 13 trillion to 21 trillion. But if you see asset is white, but what they are doing, this is the health effects from endocrine disrupting chemicals cost of the European Union alone, which is 157 billion each year. This is primarily due to food the way we are producing food and consuming it. 800 million is a dollar is the value of spending in treating diabetes all over the world. I'm saying the global number. I don't know about Indian number. I'm sure this should be very, very high. I mean, obesity I mean, in Africa also, the people who are poor, but then people who are a little affluent, relatively speaking, their food consumption is is uh, is not desirable, to say the least. And then the way the drinks and soft drinks, and I mean, you can go on around. So, what is the evaluation framework we are talking? Evaluation framework should be able to tell us by capturing those benign and malign impact that which one, product X versus product Y, diet X versus diet Y, diet system A versus system B in terms of typology, policy scenario 1 versus policy scenario 2, conventional accounting or wealth accounting or adjusted GDP versus the conventional. This kind of simulation will be something policymakers will find it hard to ignore. And if we come out with this kind of scientific studies and evaluation framework. So that is what TEAV for agriculture and food is doing. It is in the consortium with the help of WHO, and it's a kind of international resource panel studies done by more than 100 scientists gathered from all over the world. And the, this is one area where I think, Joanna, your team and your smart food can really, we have to work on this and see how it should go. But not having a smart food endeavor into this will be a lost opportunity. It is exactly what you are doing in a different variant, of course, not exactly, but you can really enrich the whole discussion. Uh, Somebody was talking about green finance. What exactly is this? There are plenty of things in green finance, but just 4 things. That is where also UNEP is working. IFC, International Finance Corporation, and their executive director has been saying that battling climate change will not be cheap. World Bank Group comes and says that developing countries alone need 100 billion investment each year over the next 4 decades to build resilience to the effects of climate change and the cost of mitigating the impact of climate change. They are expected to reach 175 billion annually by 2030. G20 countries have welcomed the green finance, green investment, or scaling green finance. Basically, green bonds, uh, integrating environmental concerns into borrowing and lending practices. I don't know whether HSBC, how much, Yes Bank, HSBC, these guys are very keen now. Even we are approaching the BRICS Bank in Shanghai. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China. They have a 100 billion paid up capital bank, which they have established in Shanghai, China. And we are requesting them that when you go for the lending, you have to think about the environmental uh, dimension. And then the issuance of leveled green bonds, roughly 120 billion is now the figure. But environmental features of the bonds can go up to 100 trillion worldwide. So it's a tsunami coming up. And Chinese banks, BRICS group, other groups, they are, at least they are showing interest and they are willing to change their lending practices. Uh, and it's not only for carbon, it is also for sustainable land management by engaging private sector. It is also in the wetland management through wetland banking. It is also in the biodiversity management through biodiversity offsets program. So there are many tools and approaches which are being used to entice the private sector, because these are the guys who create major drivers of change. And in a week, they run into $1 billion and they impact conditions and health of ecosystems and nature in a significant way globally. Uh, so finally, whether it is accounting and wealth estimates, valuations, or other priority setting, the researcher community, all of us, we should be, I mean, that is one part uh, where we need to focus, is we should have clarity and confidence Nobody is saying that we should be loud like some of the media people are and saying rhetoric all the time. But there should be, you can't go to the person like minister, you have 10 minutes to brief him so that his action can change, bring change on the ground, saying, oh, on the one hand this, on the other this, they will say, thank you, goodbye. I'm facing the ethnic violence or the riots in the country. I have flood. I have no patience for, I mean, I'm not saying science has no purpose. Science has its own purpose. But if we really want to bring good science and see that this is being used by the policymakers on the ground, then there should be a kind of, it's a question of messaging. But we should be confident and we should be clear what we are saying. Secondly, I know every study in science, and you know better than probably any, there will be a lot of assumptions. That's fine. We should put it up front. We don't have anything to hide. Somebody will have 20 billion, 20 years, will do better. But right now, we have this $200,000 and we have been able to do this. And let's be honest, put the assumptions up front so that people who are using, they can see how to use it. Third, messaging. I mean, uh, messaging is I'm not saying it is only for UNEP or ICRISAT or ICRAF. Globally, messaging is not in the best form. We need to put a lot of effort in messaging our science to the people who matter. And promptness. Sometimes uh, you something is needed on the ground within 3 days. Within 3 days, you can't say that. Oh, I need 3 months time to write a nice paper. You need 3 months. You need 3 years. But there is a trade-off. You have to make a judgment whether you really want to do it for 3 years and when nobody will take it, or in 3 days you can give something and at least you can see that 10% of your science is being used. So that is, I remember once we were in, much before it became a country, South Sudan. And we landed there and we went to the country and then we met the president. He was right there writing something, 4 or 5 guys. They were writing constitution. They said, oh, can you give us 3 pages on the environmental issues? We'll put it into this constitution. And I was not ready for this. But then I thought, here is a good opportunity. Let's give them. Maybe it is not the best. So we sat down, whole night we worked, and it was in the constitution. So, I mean, this is just one example, probably not the best one, but promptness is also needed if we really want to impact the policy. I think I thought this will be more interactive, so I will stop here. And I know I have said many things which might have prompted questions in you. So I'm very, very happy to take your questions or comments on this and discuss it. I will stop there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pushpam. You said you weren't going to use any acronyms, but you did. So your boss probably won't like you. Well, ELD, we all know what that is, I think. LDN, TEEB. I didn't know TEEB before, so it was good. Okay. Yeah, I think your messages at the end are very pertinent for us as an organization as well. And we do often struggle with messaging. Increasingly, we're meant to debate and inform policy, and you put up 29 GCMs to give a climate projection, and then you say this one gives this message and this one gives this message, but there is uncertainty in the science. So how do you then communicate that uncertainty? Maybe you've got some ideas.
Yeah, no, that's a tough one though. But no, you were right. In science, I mean, we need to be bold. We need to be confident. But there are areas where you have gray areas or there is some kind of uncertainty. So a state, can we organize that uncertainty, give them the range, 5% level of confidence, 10, 15, 25, or say we are in complete dark, we don't know. But there are certainly few areas where we have some clarity. There are certain areas where we lack more research. So we have to use your judgment basically. And even there is a vague idea on uncertainty, let's share with them, tell them that instead of doing the mistake what IPCC did, till the last moment they didn't admit. There was a big controversy sometimes back on IPCC, and so reviewing, peer review, and then leave the uncertainty stated in the work that this is the area where we don't know much. Like lot of areas, transgenic crops, for example, many areas risk assessment. We don't. I mean, South Asia does not have. India has some, I think, but not much. Then you have, in when we discuss about planetary boundaries or many other things. I mean, there is uncertainty, but certainly on evaluation and accounting, I mean, there are things which are pretty clear now, and there is a good research introduce that. But you are right. There are areas where we might have some problems.
Look, let's take 2 or 3 quick questions, and then we'll get Pushpam to respond, and then we can do some other rounds. So can we have some questions, please? Joanna? Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Pushpam. That was really interesting to get more background. I have 2 questions. Am I allowed to? Okay, the first one was, can you I mean, you didn't make it sound the same, but I still wanted to understand the difference between the wealth index and the TEEB, TEEB. I mean, it sounded like it was the same purpose, even though it was using different criteria, because it was something that could be replacing GDP. And my other question is, I mean, it seems like that's targeting governments. Can you do something similar that targets companies? I mean, they already talk about the triple bottom line and they have different accounting methods for that, but is what you're producing, can that be applied at a company level as well as a country level?
Another question, Shalanda?
I think you exposed us to many things since morning and many interesting things which are relevant to us. I was not very clear when you were talking about the benefit cost of this natural wealth when you want to comparing country wise, coming out with some indexes, some 26 to 4 and whatever. So this is you are taking the long term benefits of those, or you are taking how you are considering these benefits, because natural capital is always many times long term. So that countries later also can take decisions what are the short term priorities and long term priorities. So they will be investing more for the short term, not for the long term. Some of the countries.
And one more, Peter.
Pushpam, I found the talk, as an economist, economists are generally hard-headed, and so there's this view of trade-offs, and a straight correlation between increase in natural capital and increase in livelihoods. I'm not sure is there. So, for instance, I've thought it's economic theory that it's economically beneficial to degrade natural capital to a point where it has an impact on your earning ability going forward. And that's why natural capital goes down as countries develop. So the trade-offs is what I'm looking for. There's not a straight correlation between improving natural capital and improving livelihoods.
Oh, yeah, it is. Thanks very much. Yes, TEEB was a project, the economics of ecosystems and biodiversity, which came as a kind of response to a Stern report for climate change for UK Treasury in 2006 autumn, if you remember. So that was a Stern report in 2006 for climate change. 2007, in Potsdam, G8 plus 5 countries ministers met, and they decided that is for climate change. You remember that Stern came out with this idea that, okay, climate is changing, so if you really want to mitigate, then you have to invest 5% of your GDP and things will be fine. But if you don't do anything, the cost will be 20% of GDP. So that was a rough projections coming from Nick Stern in UK. Although that report was for UK government, it was not for the global community. Nick, but then the way global community and the governments embraced that report, they understood probably better than the big volumes of the IPCC. So G8 plus 5 minister said the same thing should be for ecosystem services and biodiversity. So that was in 2007. Initially, BMZ, nuclear safety in Bonn, not the GIZ or BMZ, but BMU, they came along with European Commission, and then UNEP came in the picture, and they did that. Okay, if we do economics of ecosystems and biodiversity, what are the concepts? What are the what are the challenges? How to do it? And so it was economics of basically nature, which came what is known as TEEV. Basically, they did demonstrate the limitations of conventional GDP. But in that report, they didn't talk explicitly about wealth estimates. However, the science and economics through Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, which was submitted in 2005 March, they did talk about limitation of GDP, and they did talk about the need for the wealth estimates. And other independent committee in US for the president, for the OECD, and other countries, they have been thinking that we should do wealth estimates. And that is where UNEP took this idea and started doing the wealth estimate. The first wealth estimate was done only for 20 countries and was presented in Rio Plus 20 in 2012. Although we got good feedback, we also got bad feedback. Many of the countries who came in the bottom, they were very angry that how come my country is so low. But it was nothing new. Whenever you come out with ranking, this kind of reaction is bound to happen. When Mahbubul Haq came with Human Development Report, you might have heard about Human Development Report coming from UNDP. Many countries in the Gulf said, "Oh, we are so rich. How come you are putting us so low?" Mahbubul Haq said, "Fine. See your infant mortality. See your education level. See your status of the woman. It is not only your cash, but it is all those things which are included, and then you come down." Anyway, so wealth estimate come from there, and then 2014 for 120 countries, now for 180 countries. So T was economics of nature, while wealth estimate went parallel. So sorry if I didn't clarify that. But now in T for food and agriculture and other initiatives, they have embraced the idea that we should go for wealth estimates. But there are some practical problems. The problems are, like in India, for example, those of you who come from statistics or economics, the CSO, Central Statistical Organization, who is the custodian of statistical work in the country, they have a problem with the data and the kind of expertise you need for wealth estimates. So those are practical part. But nonetheless, countries are embracing this. The second question was how to engage the private sector and the business. I can speak for UNEP. UNEP has UNEP Finance Initiative. They are especially engaging with the service industry, manufacturing, mostly in the extractive sector, mining, minerals, petroleum, and also, of course, forest fisheries. And they are sharing information and telling them how it is full of incentive if you include value of nature into your operations. It is not a kind of cost, but it is a kind of incentive. It is a kind of enhanced output, better goodwill, better share prices, and many other tools and approaches which these finance people talks. So yes, UNEP is very much that is on the high agenda, I think, of UNEP. You asked about that. What is this benefit cost ratio I'm talking about? So for for countries, you have land degradation, which is in the historical experience they have followed a trend. Now, as on date, what is the cost of that land degradation, right? And if you have intervention, depending upon the rainfall, depending upon the slope of the land, depending upon types of soil, you will have different intervention there. Some of them will be 80% effective, some of them will be 90% effective. Nothing will be more 100% effective probably, but nonetheless, their efficacy will vary. Now, but that intervention will also cost money. So one is benefit side. So avoided cost. If you do this, you stop land degradation. So that is a benefit. So benefit manifested through crop productivity. We have not taken the replacement cost side, like replacing the nutrients. That gives very high value, and people find it hard to trust, because whatever is lost is not lost from the earth forever. Your farm field is coming, your nutrient I'm getting, or somewhere it is going. So it's a too ecological or deep ecologist view. Sometimes welfare economists find it hard to accept, but crop loss is the real loss. Nobody can dispute that. If barley or sorghum or maize or paddy is lost due to this 6 to 8 inches of topsoil loss, or even 5 inches is gone, so then that has been captured. So that is the benefit. So avoided loss you are avoiding is the benefit, but you have to invest money in the intervention. So that is the ratio. It is for each country. I didn't want to put a long slides on this in a small letter, but I have given you for a reason. This is on the report. I mean, ELD website will have them. You can see them. So that is the. But it is, again, it might have problem. You might have some feedback to give, but it is a very snapshot kind of study. But that is the benefit cost ratio I was referring to. Trade-offs. Yes, I think this is a natural. Again, let's talk about what I presented, and then I will take the question. I was presenting the data gathered from FAO and the World Bank. It is for selected countries and what they are saying. It is nothing that I'm speaking. It is nothing that, but they are showing a kind of trade-off that natural capital is declining, but human capital is going up. I mean, a large number of countries, after all, they are exporting timber, logwood, or fisheries, aquaculture, or petroleum, but they are also building roads. They are building schools, hospitals, and urban dwellings. They are there. So, in terms of that, one is going down, another is going up. I'm not saying, or nobody will saying that this is a good trend, but that is what the data is speaking. In terms of trade-off, yes, the beneficiary, you said that beneficiary, if beneficiary will not allow, you said beneficiary will not allow natural capital to decline, or if maybe you can repeat that one, because that was very interesting, statement I found.
My understanding is that if you're the beneficiary, you can degrade your natural capital because it's economic sense to, say, soil fertility, to run soil fertility down to a low level as opposed to applying fertilizer up to a point then where it's beneficial to apply fertilizer. But the initial economically sensible thing to do is to degrade your natural capital.
Because they are not, their knowledge, they have limited information, and that is true. This can happen. I mean, I don't know whether you know about David Ricardo. Have you heard about David Ricardo? At least the economist would know. David Ricardo was the first one to give the theory of rent for the land in 1832. He was a share broker in London. Also used to teach in UCL. And he says that, land degradation is never a problem because the tract of land is very precious for the farmers. So if land is degrading, or the productivity go down, and the farmers will be compelled to go for the conservation because that is the source of his capital. But that never happened. Land on continuous basis is being degraded because the farmer who is poor, for him the discount rate is very high. He does not care what will happen in 30 years down the line. I mean, for everyone, rate of discount is some number. Rate of discount is that how you rate future with respect to present. That is the rate of discount. And like, for example, if you talk to a beggar on the street that I give you 100 rupees in the evening, or I give you 10 rupees now, he will say, give me 10 rupees now. But if you ask me 100 rupees in the evening or 10 rupees now, I can say, I can wait. I will take 100 rupees in the evening. For him, the rate of discount is, you can imagine, 10 as a percentage of 100, 90%, because he is poor. He's not sure from where the next meal will come. So the risk and uncertainty feeling is highest in the poor people. And that's why all the poor people of the world, they will have very high discount rate. So for them, certainly they will not think about the long term. And that is where the role of a state comes in natural resource management issues, because poor individual, he will have limited information, and second, he will have very high rate of discount, and which is not good for the ecosystem or the natural capital. I mean, but still, I think I'm not sure whether your question has been answered, but those things probably can go closer to what you are looking for.
Marley, was there any online questions? No. Okay. I think we've come to our time limit, so I'd like everyone to thank Dr. Pushpam Kumar for his interesting presentation, and we look forward to collaboration. Thank you very much.